What running back on an elite offense is about to get a much bigger role? Which breakout NFC West player has put his injury concerns behind him? And who is the AFC South receiver you need to try and get everywhere? Plus, Glenn Pilapil, a two-time Football Guys champion, joins us to talk about Alvin Kamara's potential suspension, Austin Hooper's rise up FPC draft boards, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Farrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
And the pressure, I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture, are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Welcome in, everybody. Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all the Balkaholics and Farelliacs. Welcome indeed to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, as always, your slightly above average host. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to break down some of the stacks you need to get in the 2022 Football Guys Players Championship, which NFC West running back is presenting himself as a nice sleeper for drafters right now, and much more. Plus, two-time FPC winner Glenn Pilapil is going to drop by to try and lock the best of the Ravens backfield as far as the value goes there, whether Allen Robinson is falling too far in Football Guys drafts, and much more. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. Of course, learn more about Farrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. You can post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us or for our guests, now's the time to send them. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to my audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce, and our producer and mutual friend, Rob. If you are watching this right now, you're either seeing it on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. We certainly appreciate that. If you are watching it on YouTube, we'd also appreciate if you could like the video, if you could subscribe to the channel, and then hit that notification bell for future shows so you can know when we're going live. You never know when we're going to go live on this channel. In fact, we went live on Wednesday night, myself and Dave Terpoli, to cover a $125 buy-in best ball tournament draft. $200,000 grand prize. Dave Terp did his draft live on that stream. It was about a 2-hour stream, and he gave us his thoughts, his play-by-play, not only on his team, what he was thinking, but also what he thought about the other 11 teams as well. We did that at Wednesday night. We'll probably do that again at some point, but when you hit that notification bell, you'll always know when we're going to go live next. So I encourage you to do that, and feel free to comment and leave a review as well. We appreciate that as well. The main event slow drafts for the FFPC begin in 10 days. So the journey to the $1 million grand prize begins July 4th. I encourage you to register for those drafts if you have not already and get in on some early ADP value before training camp hits. The Football Guys early bird promo is here, but it's going to be gone in about 6 days. So make sure that you're registering now before June 30th and drafting before July 15th so you can get a $35 free FFPC team credit applied to your account. We'll do that up to 3 times for you as well. So when you consider the $50 discount you get on the 3-pack for Football Guys, and when you consider the $105 in free teams, it's more than $150 in value. So take advantage while you can. It's pretty much the best deal you're going to get all year. The FFPC Best Ball Tournament continues to fill both live and slow drafts. Again, $125 is the entry fee. You can win $200,000 to the grand prize. That's doubled from last year. The Superflex Best Ball Tournament as well. That's another one. Only a $35 entry, and you can win a 5-figure grand prize. So check that out. Of course, Dynasty Startups, closed 12-team leagues, slow, live, and sit-and-go timers on all those at myffpc.com. And join the Run to Daylight Championship and the Draft Masters. now at kffsc.com. I just joined 2 draft masters at the KFFSC yesterday. Looking forward to getting those cranked up, and so I can get into some more drafting action as we go forward. I want to bring in my co-host with the most right now. It's the incomparable Farrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Here we are coming up in late June, Farrell. This, I believe, no, it won't be our last show in June, and I'll tell the listeners and you actually a little bit about this before we go off the air. But this is our last Friday in June. The next Friday show, it'll be July. Pros versus Joes coming up, and then we're into Cincinnati, we're into Louisville, and we're into Las Vegas before you know it.
Oh, we're getting so close, Balky. And just you did a marvelous job with the lead in talking about all the different options to draft. And the FFPC has done a tremendous job. Dave and Alex and Chris have loaded the website with great opportunities to compete. And it's your final sentence there about the value that you get drafting early. I'm a firm believer in that. I had a great spring season last year. This year, I hope it keep it going all the way throughout the summer and into early fall when we gather at Planet Hollywood. But it's just a fantastic option of drafts. Here at the KFFSC, there's a lighter menu, but still competitive and fun to get with. And you know, our main events in Cincinnati and Louisville are beginning to fill. We're beginning to see a little action. And I bet when July 4th rolls around, all fantasy players that have yet to make their decisions about when they'll be drafting will be solidifying those decisions, and it's going to even get more exciting. But get in now while you can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to get in now while you can get the early drafting action. Yes. You can get your stuff squared away. It's certainly the type of behavior we encourage on this show for sure. Speaking of behavior, Rob Gronkowski has maybe shut off the good behavior for now and maybe get into some bad behavior now that he has retired once again. He retires again with over 9,000 receiving yards, over 90 touchdowns in 11 seasons that he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Adam Schefter, after he did retire, said that he got a text from Drew Rosenhaus, who is Rob Gronkowski's agent, saying basically that it wouldn't surprise him if Tom Brady came calling if he would come back either this season or potentially next season as well. As we look at the fallout here from Tampa, few questions here for you, Farrell. You can answer them in whatever order you'd like. Number one, do you believe that this is it for Gronk, at least for this season? And then number two, what are you doing with Cameron Brate, who is now the new starting tight end in Tampa? And how far up are you bumping Russell Gage on your cheat sheet?
Yeah, those are very good questions. The first one, is this it? Who knows? Balky, in the spirit of in the spirit of the Ruddy Coppola Mario Puzo 50th anniversary classic from The Godfather. Gronkowski, make him an offer he can't refuse. Yeah. And it will probably come from a teammate or a situation. So, no, I like his agent. Drew Rosenhaus believes that we haven't seen the last of this player. I would further say that if I was running a television network, I would make the offer to Gronkowski. I think he's the most compelling and interesting individual off the field. Maybe that it parallels what he does for the team on the field. And so, yeah, football is not the same without Gronk, so let's hope he gets back. The Tampa Bay tight end position is not the same either without Gronkowski. And we may talk later if we get to talk about Godwin and his availability. So what is still in Tampa is Tom Brady, who led the league in passing yardage last year, and our friends in the desert have installed him as the betting favorite to lead the league again in passing yardage. So what does it do? It bumps up Evans. It certainly bumps up Russell Gage. It moves him aggressively up the board. I have on this very show dispatched Russell Gage out of my consideration when he was at Atlanta. And then in his last season, I began to look at him a little differently. And that was validated when he found a home through free agency in Tampa. And it's a real home. And I suggest that he'll do very well. There's some other players there at the tight end position that we shouldn't mention. Cade Otton is an interesting player that never fulfilled his potential at tight end when he was a Washington Husky. He missed 4 games last year, only playing in 8 and less than 30 receptions. But all the scouts all the college scouts that worked the West Coast raved about this player. He had another year of eligibility. He chose to enter the selection process in 2022. And, being validated there as a 4th-round draft pick, someone sees the potential in this player. Perhaps he'll be a more prolific NFL player than he was a college player. And Cameron Brate, we all know him. He's great hands around the goal line, a great 3rd and 4th option for Brady, who does go through the checks. So we've seen his act before, and we've seen it at best. He's a plug and play tight end. And yeah, for all those spring drafters that took Gronk in your early best ball leagues, if you also were a believer in the stack and got Evans, you shouldn't be hurt that badly, because there's where the touchdowns should end up.
Cameron Brate was going in the 16th round prior to the Gronk news. He has ascended. With shout out to Darren Armani, Fantasy Mojo, at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter, fantasymojo.com, who compiles all this ADP data that we cite on the show. Cameron Brate was in the 16th round. He has moved up to as high as the 1109. That would put him in the territory not only of Noah Fant, but where one Rob Gronkowski was going as well at tight end 16, tight end 17. That's where Brate has moved up to. We have seen Cade Otton starting to go in some drafts. In fact, he is an 18th round pick now in the Footballguys Players Championship. In the live best ball draft that we covered on Wednesday night, Cade Otton was drafted late there as well. And then as far as Russell Gage goes, who, I mean, just you haven't heard anything bad about this dude in the offseason. He has moved up wide receiver 39 currently at the 7-8 turn. However, since the Gronk news happened, he's gone as early as the late 5th round. So Russell Gage definitely climbing up the draft boards right there. People reacting heavily to this Rob Gronkowski news in the FFPC. Paul Dehner Jr., who covers the Bengals for The Athletic, says that he believes Chris Evans could supplant Samaje Perine as the Bengals' 3rd down back. Now, that is an impressive sentence here. Let's unpack this. Now, if he is unseating Samaje Perine as the 3rd down back, that would mean that Dehner does not believe Mixon is getting 3rd downs this year. And in fact, if you remember last year, Mixon had his 3rd down touches decline quite a bit as the season went on. He averaged 5.3 3rd down snaps over the first 6 games of the season, but in the final 9 games, only averaging 1.8 3rd down snaps. Perine, 9.2 3rd down snaps per game. And Dehner believes that Mixon was no longer on the field on 3rd down because he struggled in pass protection. Samaje Perine was then out there more. Evans, who actually played pretty well as a pass blocker as a rookie, would obviously be the more dynamic player to be out there on 3rd downs. In fact, he had 2.11 yards per route run, which is really, really good for a running back. Dehner says, and I quote, if he can continue to grow as a pass protector and build trust in the coaching staff to do the right things, you can make an argument he could supplant Perine as the 3rd down back. Now, there's a lot of qualifiers in that sentence, Farrell, but I think as we look at this and we look at the ADP for these guys, I'm definitely on board with drafting Perine if you don't have Mixon, if you're drafting in the Footballguys Players Championship as a, grabbing somebody else's backup. I think that's always a smart decision. Chris Evans, a 17th round pick right now. He has actually moved ahead of Samaje Perine, just ahead of Samaje Perine in ADP. I don't think I can go that far. In fact, if it comes down to it, I'm still probably picking Perine over Evans, but this does have my attention now about this Evans thing potentially being the 3rd down guy on one of the most elite passing offenses in the NFL.
I think we should then focus on Mixon, because perhaps that's where the crux of this lies. People are paying, and you'll have to give us Darren's number, Balky, on Mixon. I haven't drafted him in quite a while, and I think he's dropping a little bit. But people have been paying a pretty good draft capital for Mixon. And Burrow was sacked at an alarming rate, and perhaps that has something to do with it. And if you're going to if you're going to make your offensive line look better in the running game, if you're going to make them look better in the passing game, you want to have a back that can help. You want to have a lot of players that can help with this offensive line. In regards to the backups, Pirine is, he's a 240-pound running back who caught almost 30 balls last year, and he's in his 6th year in the league, and he looks to me to be a capable fill-in for Mixon when the team needs him. I don't know what we have with Evans. Obviously, he'll probably be quicker. He'll probably be a little more explosive. He'll probably be a lot lighter. I think he's like 5'11", 200, 210. At the end of the day, this will be decided in training camp. I don't know how much story we've got here. I'm with you. I like Samaje Perine. I have questions about Mixon. I will probably avoid him at the price that Daring will tell us that he's going.
Really tough to pick a guy like Mixon at the 202 right now is where he's going. So he's slipped, but not a lot. And he's running back 7. In fact, he is going ahead of DeAndre Swift, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, and Leonard Fournette. I like you can make a pretty strong case for all of those guys going ahead of Mixon right now. So I'm off him at that price for sure, just like you said. We have Glenn Pilapil, the two-time Football Guys Players Championship League winner, coming up here in just 1 minute. The last thing I want to talk about before we get to Glenn is Greg Allman's report in The Athletic about him not being surprised if Chris Godwin ends up opening the season on the PUP list. Chris Godwin tore his ACL last year, and it was in week 15. So all this positive hype, I really was never a belief in that this guy was going to be all of a sudden ready to go. Now we're starting to see the news trickle out. Well, okay, maybe he won't be ready by training camp. Oh, okay, maybe he's going to open the season hurt. Oh, okay, maybe he's going to start the season on the PUP list. This is, as Dave Tripoli was pointing out on Wednesday, Tampa needs him in January and hopefully February for Buccaneers fans. They don't necessarily need him in September and October. So they're more worried about getting him back to 100% rather than rushing him out there for week 1 of the season. If this does happen, we know that Godwin would miss a minimum of the first 4 weeks of the year, and he is still being drafted pretty high, Farrell. You want to talk about other guys I am not on at their current price, giving you the mojo of wide receiver 28, 5'11" right now for Chris Godwin, ahead of Amari Cooper, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Elijah Moore. Those 4 players, say what you will about them, but they are all slated to be healthy at the start of week 1. The best ability is availability, and we're not sure if Chris Godwin's going to have any in week 1.
And an ACL determines its own healing rate. And there's no science to this. One guy can come back quicker than another, and that's why there's a lot of speculation. Now, a player can play through a lot of injuries, but this isn't one that he can. Still with Godwin, I give the tip of the hat because you remember when he broke his finger and people said, oh, he's down for a while, and the next thing you know, he's on the field. I think this is one tough player, one terrific competitor that loves to play. So if he's allowed to get back better from the training staff, you can take that 5th round hit on him. I think that it may be a bit of a gamble, but if you're going to acquire some other receiver help from Tampa, put it in a stack, no matter what format you're playing in, that could be a smart thing to do. You'll be glad if you're competitive early that you have him late, because when he returns to the field, I have a lot of confidence in him that he'll be a great target for Brady. I don't think this is like you go to other teams and you say, okay, they acquired Gage. Gage gets a good start. Now they're splitting the yardage. Well, no, because there's over 5,000 yards in this offense through the air. There's plenty for everybody, especially a guy like Godwin.
Yeah, and if you are good enough to assemble a team, like Farrell said, if you are good enough to assemble a team around Chris Godwin when he is back and healthy, if the Buccaneers do hold him out until he is ready to go full bore, that's just like a free waiver pickup when he comes back. But you got to have the chops to assemble the team around it. And listen, if you're watching this show, you're obviously a tremendous fantasy football player. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. You are not watching this show for us. You're watching it for our guest, who I'm going to bring in right now. He's got 2 Football Guys Players Championship League titles under his belt, along with a 12th place overall finish in the FPC in 2019. He's here to talk about his 2022 Football Guys team so far. Please welcome onto the program, Glenn Pilapil. Glenn, thanks for coming aboard tonight. We really appreciate it, dude.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on. I'm super excited I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be a lot of fun. We're excited to have you for sure. Can you tell us when you're not winning? And 12th overall, congratulations on that in
Oh,
2019.
thank you.
That is impressive. Impressive stuff to do that. When you are not crushing all these leagues, Glenn, what are you doing for a living?
Crushing is an overstatement, but when I'm not doing that, I work as a custom cabinet maker. So I'm a woodworker. So I do custom cabinetry, custom furniture, that sort of deal.
Awesome. So that gives you the
Whoa.
opportunity to kind of like work around waivers, work around drafts. You can kind of pepper in all your fantasy football stuff that needs to get done.
Right. So part of the allure of being a business owner is you have all this time that you can allocate and switch around. So when I wake up, I pretty much think about fantasy football, as sad as that sounds.
Listen,
man.
all the people watching and listening, they know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
for sure,
I
for
know
sure.
I'm not alone out there.
Measure twice and cut once, Glenn.
There you go.
Congratulations, sir.
Yeah.
You would be fantastically popular amongst the wives of fantasy football players as well. I think you're welcome everywhere, and especially on this show. One of my favorite players, Glenn, Michael Pittman.
Yes.
Has been since he got in the league. I see a player that is explosive and in any week could turn in big scores. And that was my expectations last year when I drafted him in the 7th round. What happened, and I assumed that you had him a few places. I had him almost everywhere that I could get him. He was the steady Eddie. Either 5 or 6 catches, right on those numbers, 5 or 6 in 8 games last year. With Matt Ryan coming to town, is that going to change? Or are we going to get more of what we've learned to appreciate from Michael Pittman?
Well, I think it is going to change, and maybe not necessarily with the quarterback, because I think Michael Pittman is a beast, and it's his 3rd year into the league, so maybe pick up a little bit of tricks here and there, but I'm really hopeful that he'll continue on his breakout from last season. But I do think that Matt Ryan is going to help. Maybe not like a big difference with like Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford or something that much of an upgrade, but enough of an upgrade where efficiency would count. I mean,
yeah,
Matt Ryan, I think, is like a more of a pure pocket passer and tends to get rid of the ball compared to Carson Wentz, who tends to hold on to the ball and scramble. So they're different quarterbacks for sure.
I like that, and I see it. It's interesting because I see an uptick for a lot of players in Indianapolis. They're a team that obviously their first and foremost mission is to run the ball, but it's a one premier receiver. And, think about it. I like where you're going with this. In 17 games, if you can get one more catch per game out of Ryan, we're now getting almost 110 catches from this player. And what do you expect for the red zone? There's a wonderful wingspan tight end rookie there, but all of that's still to be proven. More touchdowns with Matt Ryan?
I think so. I mean, like I said, I'm banking more on Michael Pittman's talent continuing to grow, but I don't think Matt Ryan is hurting the situation at all.
Glenn, let me ask you about Allen Robinson here. This is a player that's wide receiver 19 right now in drafts. He's going behind guys like DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton. He's going behind all these players at the end of the 4th round. Now, we know he is getting to play with the best quarterback of his career, probably the best offense of his career as well. He won't be the number 1 target guy there. Cooper Kupp has that moniker, but he's going to be number 2 for Matthew Stafford on a really, really good offense. Given all that, and I'm setting you up to say, yes, Balky, he's a great value right now. Our Football Guys drafters making a mistake, letting him slip all the way to the end of the 4th.
I hate to disappoint you, Balky, but I like him where he's going, right around the end of the 4th. And for all those things that you said, and I think with Allen Robinson, if you believe that last year was a fluke and he was uninterested and it was bad quarterback play and all that other stuff, if you believe that him going to the Rams with Matthew Stafford with a championship team would kind of energize him a little bit. So I believe the latter, where he will be energized, but I still believe that the offense still runs through Cooper Kupp. I mean, there's that super high ceiling of like if something happens to Kupp and then he becomes a de facto number one. Like I still don't know what Stafford to Allen is, but it'd be really interesting to find out though.
Well, and Glenn, if you want to get Balky all excited, talk about the players from that division. All of them are headed west. They're leaving Green Bay for the West, and they left Detroit and now Chicago. Everybody's going west. I guess I shouldn't have brought that up. Okay, here's something that I won't bring up, and he's not going to appear on my draft boards, and I'm wondering if I'm right. And I'm going to ask you, Glenn. I love the player. Balky's already said it. Availability is the best ability. We've got to win, and we've got to win quick. We don't want to be looking up as you try to get to that championship game in your 12-team FFPC league. Alvin Kamara, can you set him? You know, I just talked about Godwin, and I said, okay, you know, because if Godwin does start on the PUP, he's gone for 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. I think Kamara is going to miss 6 games. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that's what it seems like, that he's gonna be missing 6 games. On top of that, I am a little bit leery of Kamara outside of his legal situation. Just with like new coaching staff, we're just not sure how he's going to be used. With the all new weapons are being attached, and he was never also a back that would carry like a full load. So I found myself shying away from Alvin Kamara, especially at a high draft capital.
He should carry that passing game, and if he was on the field with Winston, God, I would love it. But you know, he's Mark Ingram is fantasy football's greatest vulture, and he's there too. And then if you give Ingram a head start, what does that mean for Kamara when he shows up? I don't know.
Ingram is sounds like he's going to be the number 2 also, but he is getting fairly old for running backs. He's 32, and he hasn't shied away from touches, I believe, throughout his career. So maybe he slows down or not. But I do like getting pieces of the running back outside of Ingram or Kamara. Maybe like Tony Jones, I like.
All right.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that was maybe my next follow-up is if you do believe he's being suspended for 6 games, how do you react to that? And you're getting pieces of the Saints attack late, and they'll be easy to cut too, by the way, if you need to once Kamara comes back. So that makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of drafters, speaking of running backs, are excited about the Texans drafting Dameon Pierce this year out of Florida. We've heard that Marlon Mack could be the guy to start, but Dameon Pierce is going to have every opportunity to overtake him, which would make sense given the way that Houston treated him in the draft. Who is the real running back to own this season? Is it Pierce when he comes on late, or is it Marlon Mack who maybe starts with the job and never really gives it up?
Right. Well, I think that's a tough question. You almost need like a magic ball to answer that question. There's so many things I don't know about, like what's going to happen with the Houston offense or their running back situation. But I find myself leaning towards trying to grab Marlon Mack again, just for like draft capital. He's going like easily 3, maybe 4 rounds behind Dameon Pierce. So just for draft capital, I like Marlon Mack. I know he's not a slouch by any means. It wasn't that long ago where he ran for 1,000 yards and I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 touchdowns, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4. Not that long.
you gotta love Marlon Mack. Hey, talk to me about this, Glenn. We're in our tight end premium leagues in Las Vegas. I have drafted him rarely, and I have been rewarded for avoiding him. And now Austin Cooper, who cannot seem to find the right kind of home to work his skills. I was a little excited when the Stanford product was a free agent. I said, okay, he can leave Atlanta, and then he drops in at Cleveland, and now he leaves Cleveland and he's in Tennessee. I think if this guy's going to be a hit in Nashville, he needs to learn to play the pedal steel. He need, something tight end in Nashville playing for the Tennessee Titans. Not what I think of when I want to build my fantasy team. Am I wrong, right, or somewhere in between?
I think probably somewhere in between. Like,
No.
I wouldn't bank my fantasy football team on Austin Hooper, but it's definitely a piece that I don't mind having, especially as a late round flyer. Yeah, I mean he's practically free.
Well, and he should be. I think
you might eat your words.
Oh, well, I would like to because, I like the player's skill set. But, last year, Fursker and Swaim kind of split the job up. Swaim got 40 targets or 40 balls, I think. He might have caught 40 balls. Nothing is – where's he going to go? He's still on the roster, the tight end. Right. Where do you see Hooper breaking out? Because please tell me, because I would like to be right in the late rounds. And you may be the tight end whisperer because you're out there.
Yeah. I'm not a tight end whisperer by any means.
I need a tight end whisperer.
Yeah. But I do like him for the fact that I don't know who Tannehill is going to throw to. Traylon Burks seems to have issues with his conditioning. I don't know if that's just mini camp speak or whatnot, but so far the reports have been fairly negative. Robert Woods, I don't feel very confident about with such a late season injury. I'm sure he'll be able to play, but at what percentage? And it's something that you can't 100% say he's going to come back and he's going to not miss a beat and he's going to go all out. I think more likely it's going to be maybe a slow return and maybe he gets caught up in midseason or whatnot. And all this time they have all these targets available, especially with Derrick Henry behind as a running back. And I like Austin Hooper's chances of catching some of those.
Austin Hooper, by the way, as far as the mojo goes, on him, tight end 24 right now at the 1504. So obviously being drafted as a backup. It's weird because I'm not hearing a whole lot of buzz on Logan Thomas right now, but the dude behind him too, Hayden Hurst, you're hearing a lot of people talk about. Cameron Brate's right behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Brate's gonna jump up. And another guy too that's going behind all three of those guys by about a round or so is another guy who has been getting some pubs, some love from the beat writers, some love from the coaches, and that's Brevin Jordan in Houston. So if you do wait on your second or third tight end and you draft one of these guys in that tight end 23 to 28 range, in the 15th, 16th round, there might be some good choices there. Although I'll be honest with you, with all the buzz on all those guys, all those guys should be moving up a round or two as we go forward in drafts. We're talking with Glenn Pilapil, the 2019 12th place finisher in the Footballguys Players Championship, a two-time FPC league winner. Russell Wilson, let's talk about him a little bit. Yeah. He's going at that 9-10 turn right now in drafts, which to me, when you talk about what the Broncos gave up for him, the weapons that they have for him in Denver, and the fact that they're going to need him to win games in that division because it is such a tough division. I look at Russell Wilson as his ADP goes at quarterback 8 right now. That looks so good at that 9-10 turn. Do you think that's a steal there? Are you with me, Glenn, that's the sweet spot for quarterbacks this year? Or is that still an overpay for you and you'd rather wait for somebody else later?
No, I think he's an absolute bargain and a steal at that ADP. I would get him a little bit higher even. Like if I wanted to mix in Russell Wilson into my teams, I would even go like maybe a round or two higher for me just to secure him if I was worried that I wasn't going to get him.
I know I look at the last few years. I always usually wait on quarterback when I'm drafting, and I usually get once there's like 10, maybe 11 off the board, then I'll strike and grab one. And it seems like there's always somebody there in that little area every single year. I feel like the last few years it's been Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers. Those are all guys I loaded up on, was pleasantly surprised. I think I'm going to have a lot of Russell Wilson this year. And I think I'm also going to be not pleasantly surprised, because I won't be surprised with what he does. I'll just be pleasantly pleased. I think that's the way to look at it.
I think he's going to cook this year. That's why he wanted to leave. He's going to cook. Russ is going to cook, baby.
Everyone wants to draft all his players and draft them high. What captures me sort of weird, guys. We've learned to wait on quarterbacks, but to get the number 8 quarterback, which I agree with you guys, he'll probably score better than that. But to get the number 8 quarterback in the 9th round is really proving the fact that we're waiting. And Glenn, you're going to be solely responsible for the Russell Wilson inflation. It's obvious that you are the leading indicator.
Good, because I did a bunch of drafts already, so I'm good.
Good for you, brother. Hey, in those drafts, do you like to stack players from the same roster? I must tell you that sometimes when I'm going through a draft, and it doesn't matter if it's a managed team, a slim, a true best ball team, that I'm really looking for the opportunity to stack players. I think that can sometimes push my drafting strategy. Do you agree with me? And if you do you have any favorite stacks?
I do somewhat agree with you. When I draft, I try to mix things up a little bit, and so sometimes I'd search out for a pairing that I like, or maybe multiple players in a specific team. And others, I wouldn't try to. I wouldn't avoid it, but I wouldn't go looking for it. But of the stacks I like Mike Williams and Justin Herbert, Allen Robinson and Stafford, and Smith and Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have a team, Glenn, where I drafted 6 Jaguars and 5 Raiders. That was my all-time favorite stack team.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad it was before the schedule came out. I dodged a bullet there. So.
I want to talk just real quick. I love the Thielen Cousins thing, because one of the great things about that, there's just a couple of great things. Number one, Cousins and Thielen are all already proven players, like they've done already. Number two, they're getting an upgrade in an offensive mind for a coach, and that should be opening the offense up more. And number three, and this is probably my favorite part of that stack, it's cheap. Adam Thielen is wide receiver 33 at the 608. You don't have to work to get him onto your roster. Kirk Cousins is quarterback 15 in the 14th round. I mean, there's going to be some, and I'm not saying they're crazies, but there's going to be some crazies out there that wait until the 14th round to draft their first quarterback. It can be Kirk Cousins. And if you already have Thielen on your roster, you aren't investing a whole lot into that stack, and yet you get it. So, and I know you mentioned, Glenn, you mentioned Justin Herbert and Mike Williams. What was the other one, the second one that you said before?
Allen Robinson and Matthew Stafford.
Robinson and Stafford. Yeah, obviously that's one we talked about earlier too. I'm a big fan of that one. Stafford again too this year. It's not,
really
he wins. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you can get Stafford really cheap.
Yes.
As far as drafting it, I don't think that's a bad place to wait. I feel like everybody's waiting. Been really patient with quarterbacks as this year, especially, it seems like. So it's fun getting really great quarterbacks late.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have the Super Bowl winning Matthew Stafford in the 12th round, the back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers in the 13th round, Derek Carr, who has seemingly every weapon on earth now, in the 13th round as well. And then we just mentioned Cousins in the 14th. By the way, all of them are going behind Trey Lance right now. I should ask you, Glenn, are you, based on the photo that we have of you, are you a Raiders fan?
I am, unfortunately. Okay. Yes, I am.
Well, listen, I am outnumbered on this show because Farrell is also quite the Raiders fan as well.
There you go.
But you got to be. Have you found yourself maybe drafting into your fandom this year, picking up some more Adams shares, Waller shares, Renfro shares, maybe more than you normally have gotten in the past?
I try not to get emotional in drafting because that never works, or it hasn't. It's worked very poorly for me anyway. So I try to keep emotion out of it. So I actually only drafted Devontae Adams as far as a high draft pick for the Raiders.
Okay.
And only because I just don't know what's going to happen. It's so many weapons. Yeah, the Raiders are going to win. That's what's going to
I know
happen.
exactly what's going to happen.
Raiders in the Super Bowl,
we're
right?
We're going to have a very depressed fall. We're going to claim that it's the seasonal disorder when it will not be. It will be Adam's detachment disorder. ADD is what we call it. But now let me ask you something. Since you are a Raiders guy, and Balky, do we have a little extra time?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, Balky. The Jacobs is being basically thrown through the draft as he continues. He's a 5th rounder now from some of my drafts that I'm in. I believe it's getting a little too much, and I want to take him there. Then the other question I have for you is, do you see any decline in Waller? Because I do expect you to be the tight end whisperer. And I got another tight end question for you that doesn't pertain to the Raiders, so I'll shut up and listen.
All right, no problem. So Josh Jacobs, I think I'd probably take stabs at him if he falls down to the 6th round.
6th.
Yeah, I feel like there's a ton of juicy wide receivers out there that can totally be a league winner. I'm not saying Josh Jacobs can't. But maybe those guys have better chances. As far as Darren Waller goes, man, I love that guy. He is an absolute beast. I hope he doesn't deteriorate. I know he had like some injuries last year, so I hope he comes back healthy, and it'd be fun to see him run around free with single coverage out there.
Waller, Adams, and Carr on the same offense with Hunter Renfrow underneath. I think whoever's in that backfield could benefit. Exactly. I wonder when Aaron Jones is a free agent. That would be good too.
You just gut us. Just gut the whole Packers organization, and we'll figure it out. Yeah. Speaking of running backs, do you have a favorite Raiders running back that's not Josh Jacobs between Zamir White or any of these other guys that are going a little bit later, Kenyon Drake? How have you been attacking the Raiders' backup running back position?
I've been pretty much taking Kenyon Drake whenever I can in like the 18th, 17th round, somewhere around there. I like with Josh McDaniel, maybe he's the new James White. I don't know. I know that they do like to throw to their backs as far as McDaniels is concerned. Josh Jacobs has shown that he was able to catch the ball as well last year, but so I'm interested to find out. I'm not sold on Josh Jacobs handling the full load. Zamir White is as a fresh face. We'll see how training camp goes and how he protects Carr for pass protection. But I know Drake can do the job, and I know he can catch the ball. So he's kind of a dart that I like to take.
Okay. Let's keep it on the running back conversation here as we go to your emails for you tonight, Glenn. Paul in Windsor Mill, Maryland. Since J.K. Dobbins is too rich for my blood, which Ravens running back is the one to target for those of us seeking a discount in Football Guys drafts? Thank you for the email. Paul in Windsor Mill, Maryland. Paul, I got to be honest with you. You're in Maryland. You should be telling us who the Ravens running back is the target. This is your wheelhouse, Paul. So we'll try to help you. Glenn, do you have I know they got Mike Davis there now, and obviously, Gus Edwards and who's the other cat that they drafted a couple of years ago, the undersized guy. Justice Hill, thank you, is still there. Glenn, do you have a favorite one, or who's the guy to target in drafts given their draft value?
I like Gus. Before they got hurt, I mean, they paid him kind of not really starter money, but significant money, and it sounded like they were more of like a 1A, 1B before both of them got hurt last season. We never really saw what they were going to end up doing, but if I was looking at the finances, it looked like when they did pay Gus, they paid him significant amount of money to be involved in the offense and not just maybe take a back seat.
Gus Edwards, running back 58 right now for the Gus bus, 1408 in your Football Guys drafts, behind Marlon Mack, Deontay Foreman, Jamal Williams, right ahead of Zamir White, Raheem Mostert, and Hassan Haskins. Next email here for you, Glenn, is from Joe in Salem, Oregon. Is Trey Sermon a guy I can just cross off my cheat sheets this season? Is there any reason to think he'll be rosterable? Thanks so much. Thank you, Joe in Salem, Oregon. Trey Sermon, everybody excited about him last year. That excitement wore off pretty much before the season even started. So what are we doing with them in drafts right now? Glenn, is he a guy that you can look at late in roster and hope, or is this a guy that you're not even concerning yourself with?
I don't mind taking a couple of stabs at him. I think the one thing that we learned about the 49ers running back offense, or the offense for the running back situation, is you never know. I believe last year Sermon was kind of held up high and didn't quite come to fruition, and Elijah Mitchell came out of nowhere. And with Shanahan, you just don't know who's going to be in that game or whatnot. And they have such a potent running game that if you get a small piece of them, again, for free, I wouldn't get too many of them or whatnot. But if you get a little bit of exposure, it doesn't sound like a bad thing.
Glenn, do you think Mitchell has the same kind of year he had last year, or even a better year with the explosiveness and the things that he showed?
I think if he was given the opportunity, he would probably proceed along the same lines. But whether or not he gets the touches is anybody's guess at this point.
Yeah, I think they would be crazy to leave that player on the bench. It's crazy.
Question from the chat. It's from Johannes, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. She writes, in her FFPC Dynasty team, which is non-Superflex, her only receivers are Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Jacoby Myers, Kenny Galladay, and Wan'Dale Robinson. She wants to know, is it okay to ride with only 4 or 5 receivers all year if those are the 4 to 5 receivers she's going with? Thank you for posting in the YouTube chat tonight, Johannes. And again, I apologize if I'm butchering her name. I sort of do it as a bodily function, so my apologies. I love Diggs. I love Higgins. I think Myers is underrated. Galladay is not my favorite guy in the world, and I think Wan'Dale Robinson's probably a year away. Guys, I don't think I could roll with that. I think I'd want somebody else, especially considering the roster churn in FFPC Dynasty. I think you need to be keeping your eyes peeled for another receiver or two, because I don't think that's good enough for all season long.
Balky, you're being. I want to give her on-air name is Joe Sand. That's what I love, Joe Sand. I love your team. Stephon Diggs is enough for anyone. T. Higgins is the greatest number 2 receiver, especially if he gets over his injury. Myers is going to lead the Patriots in receiving. Galladay, despite what Ron Meyer says, old two-packer, Galladay is going to come back and really show why he's in the league. If he doesn't, he won't be here. And Wan'Dale Robinson, a product of the University of Kentucky. Joe Sand, you are on your way, girl. That's all I can say.
Glenn, what do you think?
I think everything you said, Farrell, was right on the money, but it wouldn't hurt to bolster with another wide receiver or 2, I think.
Well, she knows that, and she'll find it.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing too. Is like, you don't want to cut Robinson, obviously. I mean, even like you want to give him. He's a 2nd round pick. You want to keep that guy on your roster all season. Do whatever you can. As far as Galladay, I'd probably keep him around. I think he's not my favorite guy, but he's not a guy that you should be cutting. There should be some other players on your team that you can cycle through and look for the guys that are, not just having hot weeks, but the guys that look like they're going to have an opportunity. If they show up one week and have 8 targets, they turn them into 4 or 5 catches for 60 yards. I mean, your spidey sense should be tingling at that point, and you should be not just watching them, but rostering them at that point and see where it goes. You always want to be too early on a player, because if you're too late, somebody else already has them. So that's the best advice we can give here tonight. Farrell, let's give Glenn one last opportunity to dispense some more great advice here.
Lay it out. This is what we need. And you've shown the light on some players that we haven't talked much about on the show in the last few weeks. Can you tell us your guy you must have, someone that you are targeting? I think I have a feeling who that might be. Doesn't matter where in the draft. And then a guy that you will just not be in business with this year.
Okay, so for the guy I'm targeting, it's Big Mike all the way. If I can get him in every draft, I will. I think he's just going to blow up. I'm not saying Keenan Allen's going to disappear, but I think there's going to be more than plenty enough with Herbert under the helm. And I think that offense is going to be pretty exciting and a lot of offense generated.
I think that is something I have not done in the past, but as with anything, I I feel like my mind gets opened up to stuff like this,
Yep.
thanks to talented guests like you, Glenn, and people who have been very successful in the past. And if I'm living in my own echo chamber, I'm never going to get better. I got to try new things. And this is a player I've never been on before, but the last couple of years, I'm starting to warm up to him. So thank you for supporting that. I appreciate it. Is there a player that you know that you will not have on any teams this year, or as few as possible?
I don't think I would close the door on anyone, especially in fantasy. I mean, like perfect example is Cordell with the Falcons last year. I mean,
Yep.
you saw that coming. I mean, at least I did it, but he blew up in such a way that he was a league winner to a lot of people. So I don't think I would close the door on anybody on fantasy. If anybody comes at the right value that I feel is a value, I'd probably pick them up.
Is there a player right now that with their current, like what you've seen in the Football Guys drafts that you've done, where he keeps going at a certain spot and you're like, you know what, I understand people are taking him there. I get why people are doing it, but that will never be me at that spot. Is there a player that you are avoiding at ADP cost right now if they don't slip?
I think Kamara in the second round, because we don't even know if he's going to be playing or how much he wouldn't be playing. So I think for a second round pick, that's pretty risky.
It was something that I always think was me taking a big risk for a long time, never having Glenn Pilapil on, and now I have made sure that that myself and the viewers have gotten to pick your brain and gotten some great insight from you tonight, Glenn. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much for carving some time out of your schedule. Good luck in all your leagues this year as you chase that $500,000 grand prize. And listen, the next time I need some new cabinets or something, I'm going to shoot you an email and we'll figure something out.
Hit me up.
Right.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Glenn Pilapil, ladies and gentlemen, the two-time winner of the Football Guys Players Championship Leagues, and, of course, the 12th place overall finisher back in 2019. That is tough to do, man. I mean, Farrell, I mean, like, just to go in a national contest like that, and what a thrill it is, too, when you're seeing your name that high up on those leaderboards as we close out the season to finish 12th overall. I know it's not life-changing money, but that is hat-hanging performances.
You're not kidding. And I love his attitude, and he doesn't have any hard feelings about players that have let him down before, and that will lead to success. You got to go in with a lack of that kind of memory. I line up with a lot of the things that he's saying, which makes me wonder why I am not successful like he is. So I imagine that on top of being a good drafter, he really knows how to put the lineup together, and he probably knows when to play a Williams, which is every week, but when to also play another player perhaps in front of a player that he really likes. I liked his answer on Kenyon Drake. I don't believe Kenyon Drake's career is over. I think in fantasy football we sometimes benefit from other people's mistakes. Let's let them take the risk and let's let players fall to us. And I think in the case of Jacobs, he feels that Jacobs will drop further, and he's willing to give Hooper another chance. I don't agree with those, but I can see how he's how he is designing his teams, and those players could make a big difference for him.
Goes without saying too, but another important thing he brought up: keep your fandom and your emotion for easier for some people than not. Mm-hmm. There's got everybody assumes the Dizzle is this massive Packers fan. He's not. No. And so it's easy for him to draft a Packer or not. He's cold and emotionless when it comes to drafting Green Bay players.
The gunslinger of drafting.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And so I think the people that do that, you might be a little bit better off than Joe Superfan of some team where there's guys here in Northeast Wisconsin that, I mean, they'll just draft all Packers, like every single round. Start off with Rodgers, grab Devontae Adams, then A.J. Dillon, they just load it up, and their teams are terrible. And quite frankly, they don't care. They just want to cheer for the Packers. Let's get to some emails here tonight. And I want to kick things off, Farrell. It's the last one on the rundown, but it's the one from Todd in Wichita about New England. He writes, "What's up, gents? What's going on with the Pats? No official offensive coordinator and a lot of question marks at running back and receiver. Which guys should I target? Thanks, dude. that is Todd in Wichita. So you look at the Patriots right now, Farrell, and it's more confusing than ever. I know I like Damian Harris. I think I like Devontae Parker. Mac Jones to me is unless it's a best ball, I'm really not on board with that. And Hunter Henry's okay in FFPC as your second tight end. But after that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Jacoby Myers is fine, but he's not somebody I get excited about. I don't know what to think about the rookie Thornton that they took in the second round. The pass catching backs, forget about it. I know James White is the gold standard there, but he's hurt. Pierre Strong, it sounds like he's doing very well in camp, and he might take over the third down role. But then you hear Ramondre Stevenson is working on his pass route running and his catches too. I don't know what to think. So quite frankly, there's nobody on this team I'm necessarily targeting. Harris is fine if he falls to me. Parker's fine if he falls to me. Outside of that, I can't make heads or tails out of this offense.
In best ball, I believe in Devontae Parker as being a good draft pick. However, you don't know when he's going to be available. And if he is available, he's going to play very, very well. But one thing I'll say about the Patriots is they are all values. Even Hunter Henry, by the time he goes, and you can give us Darren's numbers if you want, Balky, but by the time Hunter Henry goes, a lot of other tight ends have gone. And Henry provides a wonderful, he proved that he provided a wonderful red zone target. And Jonnu Smith, surprisingly to me last year, never showed up in this offense. So while there are a lot of question marks, they are going to show up. They are going to play the games. And you would have to think that Coach Belichick hasn't lost his handle on what he wants this team to do and be. So I am willing to take shots at these players. Now, okay, so we asked a question about stacking. I'm not stacking Patriots. I don't want too many of them, but they all represent a nice bargain to me.
And that part I would agree with for sure. I mean, there's nobody that's blowing the doors off with New England Patriots in fantasy this year. Tight end 18 for Hunter Henry. That's in the Gerald Everett, David Njoku, Robert Tonyan category, which is interesting because our next email has to do with the tight end in Green Bay. It's from Fred in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. With Robert Tonyan's recovery going slow, is he a guy I should be fading in Football Guys right now? Thank you for the email, Fred. I don't necessarily know if his recovery is going slow. I think that sometimes we have unfair expectations of a lot of these guys that come off torn ACLs. So Robert Tonyan offers a lot of upside as tight end 21 in the 12th round of Football Guys drafts right now. Dude finished as tight end 3 a couple of years ago. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of risk in doing it, but when you do draft a guy in the 12th round, and quite frankly, I don't care who it is, whether it's Tonyan, a quarterback, running back, whatever, you do have to have a little bit of limited expectations for that. So if he starts off slow or if he starts off on pup, hopefully, knock on wood, that doesn't happen as Packers fans like me hope, you have to be prepared for it. So I'm fine with soaking a 12th round pick in Robert Tonyan right now. I also know that I can't be really upset if he is coming along slow.
We just talked about Hunter Henry, and that's who I would take over Tonyan. I think he has had his magic year. I think to finish third with all those touchdowns that year, was it 11? Was it 14? I can't remember the exact number, but he looks like he was in the end zone all the time. It was a fantastic year. I don't necessarily see that happening. Balky, tell me, if you go deep on the depth chart of the Packers, who is Tyler Davis?
Yeah, Tyler Davis, he's a guy that I believe, I want to say, Farrell, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think last year they picked him off the Colts practice squad. And he's a guy that he kind of flashed a little bit last year after Tonyan went down. Josiah DeGuara is not, your standard, I want this guy on my team as my fantasy tight end. That's not really what he does for this offense. He does a lot of H-back stuff, a lot of blocking, and he's a little bit undersized for the position. But Tyler Davis is a guy that made a couple of plays, not only in games last year, but in practices. We heard from coaches that he was really turning some heads. And I know, that beat has continued this year, that the beat writers are talking about him making plays, him looking good again, and the coaches really talking him up as well. So Tyler Davis is good. I don't necessarily think that he is the type of guy I'm willing to bet on consistency from him, either as a player or as a snap count, with Mercedes Lewis and DeGuara, who they do like as well. And Dominique Daphne still gets out there quite a bit. So he's a tough guy for me to roster.
All your buddies that used to draft all those Packers, did any of them draft Mercedes Lewis? That's what I want.
Yes, they did,
Yeah,
but it was always usually like the guys who did it. It was always just like a last round thing, like just to load up another Packer. He was always the first guy cut.
I've sat at plenty of FFPC tables in my life, and I have never heard that player drafted.
Yeah, it's not a good decision. It is not a good decision at all. One last email tonight. We'll go to Chuck in Wayne, New Jersey. What's up, Balky and Farrell? How do you guys feel about Terrace Marshall? He fell flat on his face last year, but he is another year wiser. Thank you for the email. Terrace Marshall is a guy too. I remember, I feel like it was Danny Mueller was drafting him a ton last year. And I was like, well, I'm going to miss the boat on this guy because I don't have him enough. And Danny Mueller's, he's forgotten more about fantasy football than I'll ever know. And then Marshall didn't have a good season. And now this year, wide receiver 97 in the 19th round, he's basically free. Quarterback situation isn't great in Carolina, at least now. We'll see what happens there. But Robbie Anderson was threatening retirement. Like he was thinking about retiring. And so I think there's a lot to like about Marshall in the 19th round, a guy who could take a big leap forward his second year.
I thought Robbie retired in the middle of the third quarter in a lot of games last year. I really like Terrace Marshall coming out of school. He was not the elite receiver, but that sort of made him a bit of a guy that you rooted for. Then he landed with this team, and I had great faith in the coach doing something with that quarterback. So I pictured something that looked like a Rashad Bateman rookie year. Look, the Moore's there, McCaffrey's there. There's a lot of quarterback questions that I'm not getting the right kind of vibe from. With Terrace Marshall, I would buy him low in Dynasty and hope that if this continues in Carolina, he either breaks out or he finds another place to play. He'll either do something this year or perhaps that will be his future. But you know what? Let's talk to Danny Mueller and see if he's still drafting him, because if he's available in the 19th round, I'm drafting him. I didn't know it was that late. And good for Terrace Marshall. You talk about throwing the dart and taking a risk. That's a positive return on a lottery ticket chance right there waiting for you.
That will complete this evening's programming. Farrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. I'll let you get back to commission. We will check out the KFFSC at kffsc.com. The main event, as you just said, already picking up steam. If you want to draft live in Cincinnati, draft live in Louisville, or draft online, you can do that there. The Draft Master's filling up. Come compete against Balky. Take my money. I'm ready to give it to you. That's all at kffsc.com. Farrell, be good. We're going to do this show again on Wednesday and Friday next week, if you can handle it.
Wow. I will be on the road on Wednesday, but I'll come in and be with you, Balky. And,
okay.
People want to know when they're going to Las Vegas for the FFPC. It's always the week of kickoff, the week after Labor Day. If you want to come to Kentucky, people ask me, what are your dates? We are always the week before Labor Day.
Yep, that's
2
correct.
weeks before the FFPC. Let's hear from you guys. And Balky, thank you for being here tonight.
You bet. Thank you, man. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Farrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, at J Farrell Elliott on Twitter, at KFFSC on Twitter. Now, let's do a bit of housekeeping as we wind up tonight's broadcast. Number one, I want to thank Glenn Pilapil. I want to thank Farrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course, all of you for watching/listening. We are back this Wednesday. So I am on vacation and I cannot, it's impossible for me to do a live show on July 8th. So as a result, we are going to do 2 high-stakes fantasy football hours this coming week. The first one will be on Wednesday night at 10/9 Central. We're going to talk with FFPC main event league winner and 2022 Pros versus Joes drafter Rashad Cobb. He will be our guest on Wednesday night. That will be the next broadcast of this program. The main event slow drafts, as a reminder, do start in 10 days. Your chase for $1 million starts July 4th. The Football Guys early bird promo expires in 6 days. Make sure you're cashing in those $35 team credits before it's too late by registering for Football Guys drafts. The 2022 FFPC Best Ball Tournament and Superflex Tournament both have leagues filling up in the live and slow category daily there. I remember you can win 200 grand and 10 grand in each of those tournaments. The Dynasty startups continue to flow on. We'll have those rolling on for you. There are a couple of close ones that are close to filling for that start drafting tomorrow morning. So make sure you're hopping on those. Red alert, as some of those are ready to pop off before draft time tomorrow morning. Plenty of slow, live, and sit and go drafts all available at myffpc.com as well. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you again on Wednesday. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I did want to wrap up the show a little bit early tonight. I did not succeed. As you can tell, I like to talk. There is a Stone Temple Pilots tribute band that is just down the road from me that goes on in about, 5 minutes ago, they took the stage. And I didn't want to miss it. Now, Two-Packer, Ron Meyer, former guest of this program, is a big fan of Stone Temple Pilots as well. He was just in the northeastern part of the country, the New England area, vacationing. I said, "Are you back in town?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Would you like to go to this with me?" He said, "You know what? I just saw the real STP a couple of months ago in Green Bay, so I'm all set. I don't need to see him tonight." And I just found out the real Stone Temple Pilots are playing Summerfest in Milwaukee next Friday. I obviously cannot go to that because I will be with you talking fantasy football here next Friday. So I'm off to see Sex Type Thing, a New York area tribute band to Stone Temple Pilots. Very excited for that. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, I will see you on Wednesday with Farrell Elliott and main event league winner and Pros versus Joe's drafter this year, Rashad Cobb. Be good, everybody. We'll talk with you on Wednesday.